What's up guys, Sanjay Shinoy here from Team Pixel Track and welcome to this brand new video in Content Marketing Mastery. As usual, let's go through the recap. Okay, so what we learned in the previous video, we learned why headlines are so important and how they can make or break your content marketing efforts, and what are the different types of headlines, the kind of headlines that you can explore and experiment with. We also saw a few examples for the different types of headlines. I strongly recommend that you go ahead and explore these different types of headlines, mix and match, play around with them, and see what you can come up with. And simple steps, 8 simple steps rather, to create amazing headlines, which I have been personally using for a very long time now. And I have been able to create some decent headlines and some really, really amazing headlines, which have attracted the highest number of clicks one could ever think of. And also we spoke about the tips for writing great headlines. In case you haven't downloaded the sheet for the power words and the emotional words and the online tools that I use to generate headlines, feel free to go back to the previous video and download all the resources that you need and just check out all the online tools that I use. So what is this video going to be about? This video is going to be about how to write intriguing intros. Now, it's super important because what happens is you might come up with a headline, you have the help of a tool, you have the help of the cheat sheet that I gave you, and you have the help of your competitors who have already written headlines, and you can just like mix and match and create headlines. But then you get stuck because like you're just sitting in front of your system and the cursor is blinking and you are not able to come up, you're not able to get the ball rolling, you're not able to start your article at all. And that makes it very important to delve into this topic on how to write intros. Also, intros are super important because after spending so much time, after writing 25 headlines, if you don't get the intro right, nobody is going to continue reading your article, right? So which makes it super important for you to write intriguing intros and not just average mediocre intros. So let's find out how you can create these amazingly intriguing intros. So in this video, you'll be learning about why it is so important to start with a bang. You know, once you start with a bang for your article, it has a lot of advantages, which we'll be talking about in this particular video. The elements of a great intro. So what are the different elements we can we have broken it down into three main elements, and we'll be slicing a lot of intros and seeing how people have used these elements to write amazing intros. And also how to grab your users' attention with your intros and examples and samples of great intros. So let's get started with this video and let's see how we can write intriguing intros. So before we get right into how to write amazing intros, let's try to understand why it is so important for you to start with a bang. Now imagine this. Wouldn't it be great if every single person who clicked on one of your articles read it from all the way from the start to the finish, unable to pull their eyes away from the screen? Now, this is the dream of every content marketer out there. And to do this, you need intros. But you might be thinking that if you're writing, say, a 2000 word, 2500 word article, intros might make probably 1% of that entire blog post. And it is a very small detail. But trust me, introductions to your content piece, introduction to your blog is not a small detail, and you need to make a bang. You need to start with a bang. And the simple reason being that a good introduction can make the difference between making your user bounce right off your page or stay along the entire content and read through it. Because let's face it, you spent so much effort to create all of those headlines and you have managed to attract the attention of the user and get him to your blog. But if you're not able to retain that attention for them to read through the blog, then you have lost before you have even started. And what introductions do is that it kind of sets the expectation. The headline does it in terms of thematically what the expectation is going to be for your content, but the introduction is going to set the context. It is going to create a platform for your users, helping them understand what they can expect out of these things, and also it sets the context for the content that they are about to read. And if you don't get the right kind of content, right kind of introduction, you definitely would have lost before you even have started. So before we proceed, let's try to understand what are the elements of an intro. Now, whatever you see here is borrowed from the field of journalism, and most journalists use this particular methodology, so to speak, to come up with great introductions, because they have to start with a bang. They have to keep the user engaged, and they have to do, and they do all of this using this particular methodology. We have to tweak it a little bit for online usage, but fundamentally speaking, it is the same thing. Now, let's dive right into it. So, what is the main element? What are the main elements? The first one is the hook. The hook is what grabs the attention of the reader, which then will lead to the transition, which is the bridge between the hook and the thesis. And the thesis is what tells the reader what the content is about. Now, just remember HTT, you need to hook the reader, you need to transition him into the thesis. If you want me to put this in very simple words, it basically is all about grabbing the reader's attention and then presenting the reason for the content's existence and explaining how your content will help your readers. Now, how do you grab the reader's attention? There are a few ways to hook your reader from the start. One way to do is you can be empathetic. You try to make them feel that you understand what their problem is, or you tell a story. That's probably my favorite way of grabbing the attention, and you'll see me doing that a lot. So that what happens, I feel, why I like it a lot is because when you tell a story, the reader immediately feels some level of emotional resonance with that particular content piece. You could also start off with a joke if you're kind of a funny bone yourself, or even better, you could shock the reader with some kind of a crazy fact or a statistic. So these are some ways of grabbing the reader's attention. Again, I'll show you examples of how people have used this particular structure or framework, so to speak, to come up with great intros. But just remember this. And the second thing is, how do you present the reason for the post's existence, right? Your post needs to have a purpose that we spoke about in the why. The why what are you trying to do with the blog? Why, the big why behind why you're writing this particular blog post. And to put it in very simple terms, the purpose of any post is to address a very specific problem, and what I mean to say is present the reason for the content's existence. To a large extent, subconsciously, the reader knows what is the reason for this content's existence. But what you have to do is you need to validate the user's problem, and you need to tell him that, listen, you're not the only person in the world to have this problem. Even I have this problem, and so does so many other people have these problems. And that is the kind of connection that you get. So this is the transition. This is where you present the reason for the content's existence. And once you do that, what is going to happen is you'll be explaining how your content will help your readers. Now, this is where you set the expectations of your content piece. You should create the context around the content. And the best example that I can give for this kind of a framework are all the videos that you're watching right now. I might not be grabbing the readers or your attention in the beginning, because I've already grabbed your attention when I had to, but at the end of the day, more or less, it creates this particular, I follow this framework too, right? So grabbing the reader's attention, then I present the reason for this particular video. Why are we learning about writing good intros, and why is it so important to start off with a bang and create amazing intros? That kind of sets the expectations of why they need to, or why you need to listen to this particular video. And then I go on to explain how this particular information is going to help you create these intros. This is such a meta example, right? So it's amazing how meta this example is, because the same thing what you're trying to understand here is being put into effect as we speak. So, and this is a very good way to do it, and a very simple way to do it. And let me show you a few examples that will help you understand how people have used all of these things very effectively, and how you could do the same thing with your particular introductions. Okay, I promised you examples and I'm going to show you a few of them, both on my blog and on the blogs that I really, really like reading and following them, and great examples of great intros, to be very honest. So, the narcissist that I am, I'm going to start off with my own blog. So, as you can see, I just wrote an article very recently on the future of content marketing and how to stay relevant. Look at the way I have done it, and probably you can do the same thing yourself. What I've done is I started off with fact. I've started off with the statistic saying that content marketing is all the marketing that's left. Now, this is something very audacious to say, right? But luckily, I didn't say it. Seth Godin did, and that was 10 years ago. That's exactly what I wrote here. And once I have set the stage for that, I have set the stage saying that content marketing is all the marketing that's left, and that is the fact of the matter. But now I need to tell them why content marketing is so important. And this is the transition that I'm going to take them. The reason why this piece of content exists, the reason why content marketing is important. And you can see all the things here, like it costs less than 62% lesser, conversion rates are higher, blah blah blah, and why all the things that is there. This is the whole thesis, and at the end, this is the whole transition, and then you can see that the thesis is like, if you want to win at content marketing, you need to keep up with the changes and adapt to it. And this post is all about those significant changes and how you can stay relevant to the future of content marketing. So this is basically how I have done it in one of my blog posts. In the other blog post, I opened up with an anecdote, with a story, and this is one of my favorite ways of doing it. You can see it across like all my other blog posts also. As you can see, open your analytics, she yelled even before I had opened my laptop. This creates a sense that there is a story coming your way, and I want to know what the story is, right? So I go ahead and tell what the story is, and I completely tell the anecdote and what I learned from it. And again, I'm setting the stage, I'm setting the expectation, and then I'm going to say that if you're a blogger struggling to drive traffic to your blog, keep reading. It's going to be a long read, but completely worth it. Again, I'm being empathetic, I'm trying to connect with my user persona. Here in this case is going to be a blogger who's struggling to drive traffic to his or her blog, and how basically I am setting the stage with an anecdote of how I got like more than 500,000 visitors in like less than a week, and what I understood from it. And I basically went ahead and dissected the whole learnings that I got. Another way of using stories, Deepak seems to do it really well. As you can see, he starts off with a banger. It says that this is a true story. I love this post when he wrote it, because it almost it feels like I need to know what this story is about, because this is a true story, right? And the more people feel or believe that the story is true and authentic, the more they'll be inclined towards reading it. So this is a true story. Nairobi, Kenya, hundreds of families live in villages. This is basically the hook. If you ask me, this is a true story is the hook, then basically this is all the transition. And basically goes on to tell, you guys should read this, Scaring the Lions with Automation. It's a really nice article that Deepak has written, and he goes on to tell all this story with all the kinds of photographs and all of that. And then he transitions into the whole thesis. It's about the idea. How important is the idea, and what matters is the idea. And then he transitioned to the thesis of why putting those ideas together is so important, and goes on to write about the same thing. One more of my favorite writer online is Glenn Allas, or his internet moniker is Viper Chill. He also runs this website called Caps. Now, he goes the more predictable way with being empathetic. With the practice of search engine optimizations predating even Google, are there still opportunities out there in one of the biggest markets online? Now, he starts off with a question, and what this does is it kind of makes the user not only curious, but kind of helps them relate that, I had the same question. And he immediately follows this up with saying that that's the question I look to answer in this breakdown of some of the most successful companies in the industry. And he goes on to say what you can expect from this particular thing all the way. And with this report, I didn't want to make any guesses, share the financials. And because this gaps, the second half of the post is about opportunities for capitalizing on my favorite industry of all. While he is introducing what the content is going, he still manages to keep that sense of suspense, sense of half-baked information in the introduction that makes people to go and like dive right into it. And that's what he does beautifully. One of my other favorite writers, Obaid-BJ, Tim Urban, he's a slightly more of a conventional writer compared to most online writers out there, but nevertheless, he's a great writer. I love the way he writes, it's amazing. And look at the way he starts. It's very direct. It's like, quick note before we jump in. This is a post about something I've been wanting to write about forever, careers. And he goes on to tell what is wrong with it and why, how he's taken this blog post and the way he has like put it across and how it might be helpful for you. And beautifully done. This is a very good example of a great intro. Again, one more guy is a socialist figure that I really, really like writing. I love the way he writes. And I wanted to show you this particular example because it's so short and to the point, right? So if you sell physical products online, there is nothing more frustrating than customer returns. Now, again, he's being empathetic here. Best case is just annoying for you and for your customers. Worst case, you have to deal with people who exploit your policies. These people have no intention of buying. It's borderline stealing. The good news is I just read interesting new research that may help you reduce customer returns by up to 37%. I mean, this is literally the hook, the transition. Sorry. Oh, God. Anyway, this is the hook, this is the transition, and basically this is the thesis that he's going to present. Basically how you can reduce customers' return by up to 37%. This is such a good example of a very good intro. It's short, it's crisp, it's to the point, and it definitely fits into the HTT framework. Also, one more thing that I want to show you, this is by Mark Manson, one of my favorite authors out there. I've read most of his books, and so should you, if you or you can just check out his blog. And the way he starts off with an introduction is basically by painting a picture in your head. So look at the way he starts off. One day when I'm a multi-billionaire, I'm going to buy a massive plot of land out in the frigid wasteland of the northern Yukon and build a vast complex of unnecessarily poorly designed buildings. There will be no roads that lead there, no utilities, no central heating, and insufficient staff to maintain the structure. I'll then call it the Hall of Fame of Bad Decisions. Now the headline is 5 principles for making better life decisions. Look at the way he has painted the pictures of trying to tell you that why bad decisions are so terrible for you and how you can make proper life decisions. And he goes on with the transition, saying that what else he'll be doing, what are the kind of art installations, if you want to call them, he's going to have in all of these houses. And he beautifully transitions into the whole content itself. Check out this particular blog post. He has done such a good job in painting that picture and diving right into the content, and you won't even know that you're diving right into the content. So again, the way I've done is like pretty basic, pretty simple. And once you become like really good writers, you become either like Tim Urban or probably like Mark Manson, where you won't even know that you're reading an intro, or even this for that matter. If you want to become purely online, I totally suggest doing something like this. Very quick intros, very crisp, and just straight to the point. So I think these examples might have helped you on how you can like go ahead and create intros. Let's quickly understand more about intros before we close off this video. So let's quickly do a recap of all the things that we learned. If you want to grab attention with intros, what you need to do is start with a story and anecdote. This is like a shortcut to like getting great intros. If you have your own story, perfect, or you can just like borrow somebody else's anecdote and just like go ahead and start with the story. Telling stories always keeps your users engaged, and you can present a shocking statistic. You saw it in my first blog. I said that content marketing is the only marketing that is going to be left out. I mean, it's not exactly a statistic, it's a very bold statement to put across. You can use the statistic also saying something like, I don't know, 85% of digital marketers do not know how to use content marketing or something like that. Just giving you an example. You can also put forward a thought-provoking question like how Glenn Alosper Viperchill did in the SEO article, saying, is it even worth getting into the SEO industry right now? Starts off with a question. You can do the same thing. You can also have a controversial opening. I mean, it completely depends. My first blog is somewhere in between a shocking and a controversial opening because it's very audacious, it's very bold, saying that how can you say something like that? But controversy really helps, puts people in this mode wherein they want to like shoot you down or put their own opinion forward, which is why it makes them think that, okay, before I put my opinion forward, I need to know what this guy is talking about. So having a controversial opening also helps. And or you can state the obvious and like start off with your entire content piece, but be careful here. When I say state the obvious, don't start off with boring intros. I'll give you an example. Say for example, if I give an article to write about content marketing, what is content marketing, how to use content marketing for your business, don't start off by saying that content marketing is the blah 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 and all of that. That is not the idea of writing intro. That is not the way to write intros. That is how we probably wrote in our school, in our colleges, but that's not how it's going to work right now. And that is not what I mean by stating the obvious. Okay, you can state very obvious facts, obvious statistics. People know all about creating that resonance with the user. And again, one of the other things that I like using is using analogies and metaphors. You saw this in the Mark Manson blog. You also saw this in Deepak's blog. And Deepak is crazy about using analogies. He pretty much uses analogies for pretty much everything. You can see it like sprinkled all across the blog, not just in his intros. So that's it for this particular video. Go out there, create a banger of an intro with the HTT framework and try to understand it, dissect all the intros that you read as much as possible. And the only way you can get better at this is by making more and more and practicing more and more. So go out there, create more intros. Let me know what you think about this particular video. You can drop in your comments in the comment section or shoot me an email at sanjay@pixeltrack.in. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next one.